Hello, welcome back to the Field Coach Expert Podcast, the place where franchisors and field teams come to learn practical ways to strengthen their systems and empower their franchisees. I am your host, Jennifer Brannon, Chief Growth Officer at AC Inc. And today we are talking about something that sounds simple, but can completely change the way franchisees experience support. And that is asking more and assuming less. In franchise systems, it's often easy to hear a problem like marketing isn't working for me. And I know when I was coaching franchisees back before I had any training, it was like, okay, great. Well, this is what you should do. You should try this. You should try that. And really, sometimes we need to sit back, not necessarily assume that marketing is in fact the problem, and let's dig in and figure out really what's going on, so that we are not necessarily trying to solve a problem that might not even be there. And maybe there's some other factors that come into play. So we're going to dig into that today, and I'm excited to be joined by Tessa Bohn, Director of Franchising at STOR-X. Tessa, welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thanks, Jen.
So, yep. Tessa, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, just really happy to be here. Excited to join you.
Oh, good. Tessa's, is this your first podcast, Tessa?
It is. It's officially my first podcast, so I'm very excited.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, welcome. It's going to be super easy. Super casual. So before we get into really the topic that we're going to chat about, can you tell our listeners just a little bit more? Obviously, you're Director of Franchising, but we'd love to hear, what does that mean in your system? A little bit about STOR-X and what your system looks like today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are STOR-X Organizing Systems. We as a business have been around for almost 37 years come October, so that's pretty exciting. Wolf, who is the founder of the business, started as more of a manufacturing facility, and then we grew later on into the franchising world about 15 years ago. So we've been now actively franchising in Canada for about 15 years. My role in the brand started in the marketing world and then kind of slowly built into the whole franchising world as I discovered and learned everything about it. And as a family business, we're very much, we wear a lot of hats naturally. It's kind of one of those things that comes with the job. And my primary focus is really franchise development, and I lead our field coaching team. So that came with training and a lot of growth and moving from a more consultative role to now more of a coaching role. But essentially, as STOR-X, our franchisees essentially design and install custom cabinetry for people's homes, whether it's their kitchens, garages, closets, basically any space of the home. And you may actually, speaking of first podcast, if you hear any kind of buzzing in the background, I'm literally sitting on top of the manufacturing facility right now. So if you hear any sounds, that's what that is right there.
Awesome. Okay, so thanks for that, Tessa. And just for full transparency, Tessa and, as she said, her family and STOR-X, they're very close friends of our brand of AC Inc. And Tessa has worked with our Director of Advising for a long time, which we can talk about throughout the podcast. And so I can't believe it's taken us so long to get you on this podcast. So I'm really excited.
We've been working with you guys for, I think, 3.5 years now.
Wow.
I think it's been 3.5 years now. Yeah.
Wow. All right. That's awesome. I wonder if that's a record. I should look at that to see if you're our longest client.
Can't get rid of it.
Okay. Yeah. So our topic is ask more, assume less. And I think this is an important one because so many breakdowns in franchising, or franchisee support start with communication. And I mean, there's never bad intent, but I think that, different than bad in intent. And sometimes franchisees think things are, oh, my franchisor is doing that because they just want more royalties from me, or they want this. But I think really much more it comes from assumptions. And all of us can really make assumptions about whether we're coaching our franchisees or franchisees making assumptions of why things are, why do people say certain things, and so on. And so from your perspective, Tessa, why is this an important topic, right? To asking more and assuming less. Why is that an important topic for franchisors and franchise support teams?
Well, I mean, whenever I think of franchising, it's such a human thing. And what really it comes down to in franchising is really just human relationships. And I mean, you could bring this into your own life, and aside from franchising, is you don't want people to assume and just jump on things when you talk to them. So from a franchising perspective, it's the same thing. Like, people want to feel heard, they want to feel connected, and it's very rare that people are doing things, or at least in our experience with our franchisees, it's very rare, if ever, that our franchisees are ever doing something in a negative fashion with the intent for negativity, or with a bad intention. Like, one thing we always kind of try and remind ourselves as a team at the head office is, and it came from a previous coach we used in the past that was a sales coach, it was always assume best intentions. Yep. So when we think about when we come at it with a franchise, it doesn't always happen. There's times where you get frustrated and you do start to assume, and you jump, and you want to be productive and proactive, and you're like, okay, how can we solve this problem? But when you come at it from the perspective of assuming best intentions, it then immediately takes you from a place of accusatory or blaming, or being like assuming like that they're trying to do something that's going to make things harder on you. And it helps you bring it to a place of curiosity. So I think when you kind of stop assuming and trying to ask more questions, and you try to think from a place of, okay, like, why are they doing this? And let's find out, let's ask more questions. Let's dig into why they're doing this thing that in our minds seems obviously maybe wrong or frustrating, or maybe they're doing something to like, that is like, doesn't work, or in your mind you think doesn't work because you've experienced it before, because you have years of previous experience in a multitude of different ways of whatever business you're in, whether it's us with cabinetry or other companies. Like, you have to at least ask the question so that you can be like, oh, maybe there's a deeper reason to why they're doing this. Because obviously if they're harming their own business, they're harming our business. And like, they're not trying to harm their own business. No one goes into business to try and fail. So obviously there's a reason behind what they're doing.
Yeah. Great points. Oh my gosh. Excellent. Yeah, for sure. Wait, and what do you think some of those assumptions are? I mean, we could create probably a list of 1,000, but what are some of the assumptions that whether we're coaching franchisees or we're the franchisors, that is often things that is common assumptions? What might some of those be?
Like, I think a lot of assumptions can come down to like, oh, they're trying to take a shortcut, or oh, they don't know what they're talking about, like, or they got bad advice, or they're assuming they don't know how to like function in the business, like they didn't listen to me, obviously. So that's an assumption that's pretty common. It's like, I've told you this 1,000 times and you still aren't listening, so obviously you're ignoring what I'm saying. Or they're actively trying to do something negative. I think they're when assumptions come in, they don't tend to be positive. They tend to be things that are like, and it usually comes from a place of frustration. So it's a natural instinct to, when someone does something that maybe you would otherwise think is not helpful, you start making those. I think it's very easy as human beings to go, okay, well, they're actively trying to harm. It's that kind of fight or flight thing. I think we see something going wrong and we're like, oh, they're actively, or like, oh, they don't know what they're talking. The big one I think a lot of the time happens is they say, oh, I'm trying this new thing, and they tell you what that thing is, and in your mind you're like, obviously that doesn't work. So here's like 10 solutions on how do you actually fix that thing. So I think those are a lot of the places where I think assumptions are kind of easy to get into, is you're trying to get to a problem solving solution. So you make some assumptions so you can get to your answers quicker that you want to.
Yes. Oh, good. Great point. Yeah. Great point. I think also, we do this, and we talk a lot about this in our field coach certification programs and any work we're doing with coaches on seeing resistance from the franchisee. To your point, they're not doing what they need to do. They aren't obviously bought in. Maybe they're not being compliant. Maybe there's resistance period, regardless of what it is. And we make assumptions that they are doing that on purpose because they just don't want to do these things. Or there is bad intent. It's like, I'm not going to be compliant. I'm going to go off and over here and do what I want. Now, that does happen. However, we know that the majority of resistance that we see in franchisees, there's a root cause of it. Fear, right? It's always, why aren't these franchisees getting out and doing what they need to do in the community and introducing themselves to 10 other businesses every day? A lot of times it's fear. I don't want to, I don't feel comfortable doing it. Maybe it's lack of training, right? We assume that we've trained them well, so they're going to go out there and of course they're going to do it. We make assumptions of our franchisees are entrepreneurs. And I will challenge anyone that says all franchisees are entrepreneurs just because they've started their own business, right? Franchisees tend to, I want to buy a business in a box. Everything's all figured out. You're going to teach me and I'm just going to run it, right? If they were true entrepreneurs, they would have started their own business outside of franchisees. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule. I am generalizing, but I think that's a big one. We're making these assumptions that our franchisees, because they're running their own business, they're just going to do all the things that need to be done to run a successful business. And I mean, it's just
Powerful.
absolutely.
Like fear is a powerful thing.
Yes.
And I remember recently when I went to the CFA, I told one of my franchisees, like, Coach, I'm off to go do what I tell you to do all the time because I'm also scared. And I like forced myself to talk to people. And because I'm also not a natural, like I think a lot of people who also own businesses, I think it's not uncommon that even if this isn't natural to you, it's still something you have to figure out how to do. And yeah, that fear and I mean, I hear Angela say this all the time, but like the confused mind says no. It's that's just a different kind of, it's a different way of talking about fear, really. It's like when you're confused or uncomfortable, your natural instinct is going to come out, whether that means you're going to actively resist something, just freeze, or, run away from it. Like it's just, it's a natural way of kind of dealing with it. So then it's like, how do you get through that? And I think questions is always really good, like just getting curious.
Yes, which we're gonna get to shortly. You're spot on there. And one other key, I think, and I harp on this a lot because I just feel like if more franchisors did this, it would make a big difference for their franchisees. And that's when, again, back to that assumption of entrepreneurs, or our franchisees either have or going to figure it out or are going to get extra help to understand how to be a business owner, right? How to read the financials. Well, they should be looking at their financials. So of course they're going to figure it out and get themselves some help and so on. That's just, we all know that's not the case. So how can we provide our franchisees training on business ownership skills and things, things like that? That's a big one. I think a lot of assumptions on everybody's part when it comes to certain things in franchising. So, so let's talk about, when we're coaching a franchisee or working with franchisee or even hearing from a franchisee, that age-old statement, my marketing isn't working. That's typically not necessarily the full story. It's a thought, it's maybe an assumption. How do we, if you've got, you coach franchisees, if you've got a franchisee coming in saying that, how do you approach these conversations at STOR-X so that you're not just reacting to the first thing that they say or that blanket statement?
Well, I think you kind of nailed it with it's the easiest question. When things are going wrong, sometimes I'm not getting enough leads or my marketing's not working, is the most natural thing to hop to, because it's a thing that they can control with actions, but it does feel kind of like in the ether a little bit. So it's like this mysterious thing that they're like, well, it's not working, so we need to solve it. And I think the way we tackle it or we work to tackle it is through, again, curiosity, and also I think reporting and looking at numbers. So I think that is a really good way to kind of help dig in further. So like when someone comes to me and says I need more leads, I think previously, historically, before we kind of really got into the coaching side of things in this more recent evolution, and we were in that more consultative role, our natural instinct was we were problem solvers. That was, and we were always, it was intended as a positive thing, but our natural instinct would be to go, okay, well, here's all the different things we can throw at you. Here, try this, try this. Have you tried this lately? And like, here's what we can do for you. Let's throw more money at it. Let's do these things. And then you would start doing that. And then you would very quickly realize, like, oh, this may not be solving any problems, and it may not even be the problem that we were having to begin with. So one of my favorite questions that we've started asking, and I didn't invent it, it's one of the ones I got from a round table, is just like, tell me more about that. Like, it's the most simple question in the world, but when someone comes at you with like what seems like a wall, like, I need more leads, it's kind of like throwing a brick on the ground and being like, this is an unsolvable problem. I need more leads. It's like, okay, well, tell me more about that. And because that could mean 20, 30 different things to one person. Like, I need more leads could mean it could mean like I'm going to consults and no one is closing sales. It could mean the leads I'm getting are the wrong leads. It could be the people I'm calling them and they're not answering the phone. And then you can dig into, like, there's so many different ways you can dig into those questions then when they're giving you additional answers to that feedback. So I've always really, since I started using that question, like, just tell me more about that, it opens the door for them to, like, you know, build trust with that person. And then they can also, it gives them an opportunity to vent, which a lot of the times when they're venting about the struggle that they're having, they give you way more information than that initial kind of statement.
Right. Right. Yes, as you know, and it's a big part of our field coach certification that we do is really focusing on questions, you know, and different types of questions. When that comes to us, it's now we're trying to figure out, we're using our curiosity, right? In that, like, really, what is it? We're trying to get to the root cause, what's truly going on. And so, you know, questions like, walk me through what's happening. What have you already tried? Where do you think the breakdown is? Or let's look at your numbers. What do we see? What is this telling us? And bringing them into that, as opposed to us saying, well, I see that your, you know, X, Y, or Z is this. Bringing them, asking them to look and interpret, right? And now we're asking questions, because I'm always harping on, let's stop talking at our franchisees. Mm-hmm. Let's ask the question. So it's that dialogue, and we can together diagnose it. And that way your franchisee is going to be a lot more, you know, on board with whatever that diagnosis is that the two of you have decided on. And using data, I know everybody agrees with me, right? Data doesn't lie. Mm-hmm. And so we can really see the truth behind that. And so do you have like a practical example, like a scenario or something that you have a franchisee that you've had to really do this with?
Well, I like the first one that comes to mind is one of our more successful franchisees in Regina. She's one of those people who is a killer marketer. So she will like, she will do like, but she does everything. So sometimes I think she gets into this place where she's like, well, I'm trying everything, and it doesn't feel like enough is coming back with everything that I'm doing. So we had a recent call. Sorry, Diana, I'm calling you out on a podcast, but she's amazing. And she's like, I'm doing everything. She's like, I'm doing the lawn signs. I'm doing the social media. I'm doing the Google AdWords. I'm doing the networking. I'm doing the repeat business with builders. And then she's like, but then I'm feeling like I'm not getting as much in. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at your numbers. Like, what are you seeing? And we took a look at, we built a report that basically shows like how many leads you received and how many opportunities you received from different lead types, and then the amount of revenue you're getting from those lead types in the last year. And then what she saw was her referral and repeat business was bringing in like almost 60% of her work, whereas the digital and the social was bringing in maybe like 20 to 30, which is still significant. But then what we were talking about was like, and then one thing she was talking about was she's like, you know, I do these things with builders, but maybe I need to just be more intentional with it. Maybe I need to get it on my calendar. And then from there, we were like, okay. And then she's like, I'm going to set it on my calendar. Like in the meetings, she we did it as an action step. And she's like, I already did it. Like, so it's in her calendar. And she's like she brings donuts to, designers' offices and builders' offices. And she was doing it when she thought of it. And she's like, okay, now I'm going to put it on my calendar. I'm going to do it this amount per month. And seeing that and seeing the results of that, like we'll see the further results of it. But what we're seeing is she's already succeeding in those things. but then it gives her the opportunity to see those numbers and see, oh, I could do even more of that and build it even further in those areas. So to me, I'm like, this is just like positive on top of positive, because I'm like,
Yeah.
she's already doing great, but how do we make what she's doing great even just more productive and more proactive? And that came from us just like asking those questions and being like, okay, you're feeling frustrated because you're doing all this stuff and you're being very like, you're working really hard, but like, how do we make it so that you don't have to work, you just work harder in the right areas, in the right sections?
Oh, I love that so much. Absolutely. And right there's that's an argument for, we hear from brands saying things like, you know what, we don't really coach our top performers. They're okay. They've got it figured out. It's like, really? Your top, maybe they just need this kind of coaching that you're doing with Diana to level them up, to get them to see those other areas of opportunity. It's like, oh, if I just did more of that or whatever, now, I can level up, I can get even more revenue, or I can really be more impactful with my actions and see more results. So, oh, I love that,
Well,
that exercise
and
that you did there.
I think it's super important to coach your top performers as much as your new franchisees are the ones that are struggling, because you also want to keep them top performers. And also, I think having that, it just might look different too. Like a lot of our top performers, it's not the same conversation you're having with someone who's only a year into the business and still learning and potentially learning from your top performers. So I think having those coaching calls with them, and even just like it's also just like a way of like building those relationships further too, because you want them to feel heard and listened to, and then they're also more likely to continue to build in the culture of your franchise and support those newer franchisees and be excited to share the knowledge that they have too. Because I'm like, if you just leave them out there to do their own thing, I think maybe some franchisees would prefer that, but I think if you give them a reason to be in those coaching meetings, it might not be the same as the new franchisee who's like just thirsting for knowledge. It might just be like having that person so they don't feel so alone, especially when if they're top performing but struggling. Even just having that, like, sometimes my role is I'm not even really aggressively coaching so much as like being like, what do you need from us to feel that you're succeeding and feel like you have support from us?
Right.
It's like a slightly different conversation.
Yeah, for sure. My last brand, I was a top performer, and I was 8 years in, and I got complacent, and I was like, oh, I'm a little over this. If I had a coach that was driving me, being like, hey, look, 2 more years to your agreement, are you out then? Then if so, let's get you going so that you can make as much money, so you can sell this for as much money as possible. I mean, I went and got my own coach to do that, but because somebody, I don't know where I learned it, somebody told me, hey, you can't, like, buck up here. Here's the finish line is in sight, because I knew I wasn't going to extend my agreement. And so I think it's so true, because there's so many things that can be going on with your top performers that can cause them to downslide, become complacent, leave money on the table. I was just talking to somebody, a brand new, almost client of ours coming on, and he was saying that they've had a franchisee that was doing okay, looking good on paper, top performer, looking great on paper. Now she's ready to sell, and they didn't dig deep enough into her financials. Maybe she wasn't sharing them, and there's no profit. Looks good from a sales revenue standpoint.
Top-line revenue looks super great. Nice big chart button where it goes up.
She wants to sell her business for 400,000. It's like, you're not going to be able to. Like, you're just breaking even and paying yourself a little bit of a salary, and it was shocking. Had they been more involved and doing all of these things. So anyway, I know we're kind of digressing.
Talking about assumptions, we're also making the assumption they're doing great.
Good one. That exactly. Yeah.
So maybe that's a positive bad assumption then. Like, oh yeah, they're doing fine. They look at the sales. They're doing great. Like, we don't need to worry about that. Like, well, you don't know what's going on in their lives. How are their kids?
Yeah.
Like, how many soccer games did they have to go to this weekend?
Right.
Like, when's the last time they took a vacation? That's a big one. Like, I one of my franchisees recently, they hadn't been on vacation in years, and like I told them, she said, oh, I'm bringing my laptop with me to do work in the morning. I'm like, okay, but you need to have a margarita while you do it. I'm sorry, you need to also make time for yourself. It's super important. Like,
for sure. Absolutely. Okay, so if we shift a little bit, I know that you've made reference to, how you used to be consulting with franchisees and now you've stopped making assumptions and now stopped asking a lot of, sorry, started asking questions and being curious and finding the root. And also using questions, which I think we mentioned earlier, really using questions to get franchisees buy-in, right? And like, we may know exactly what they need to do. Like,
Mhm.
I know that you need to do X, Y, or Z. How much more powerful is it if I'm asking questions to get them and guide them using my coaching skills to get them to say it out loud and realize, you know what, I really should be doing X, Y, and Z. And then we're just like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Great idea. How are we going to make that happen? Let's create your action steps because now they've said it out loud. Now we can hold them accountable. And now they're bought in because it was their idea. Right? Like that's just such a different way of going than saying you need to do X, Y, and Z. Because I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll do it if I want, you know? So really, if you look at STOR-X these days and how you've been coaching and supporting your franchisees, what has that shift looked? Sorry, what does that shift look like? How have you changed in your approach?
Well, like I would say like it was because we kind of started in the world of more the manufacturing, the supplier side. That was really what we did. We were essentially a supplier and we've been manufacturing product for many years. And we moved into the franchising model. So what we brought with that was the operations side of things. So we were very comfortable coaching people how to design and install our product. And I think one thing I will take a lot of pride in is we've always worked really hard to try and build a healthy culture. And I mean, that always has, but with that and without the knowledge of the coaching side, I
Mhm.
think what we ended up doing is a lot of hand holding
Mhm.
and unintentionally. And I think that also brought in franchisees who maybe like needed that, who are like, by the way, now since we've moved into a more coaching role, they're no longer in the system. Our system has evolved to have
Mhm.
people who are more eager to be coached as
Mhm.
opposed to people who just want the answers and want you to kind of do things for them. Like it really shifted our franchise development side of things as well. So prior to kind of meeting AC about 3.5 years ago, the
Mhm.
previous years of that, we worked with a sales trainer who kind of originally did a lot of work with us in the kind of culture building of our manufacturing facility and our team internally who builds the product. And he was also a bit of a sales guru. His name was Neil Gotten. He did a lot of really great work with us. So he helped us really like build our culture, who we are as people, how much we care, and like how to handle situations. And he kind of actually was that one who really built that assuming best intentions kind of culture in
Mhm.
our internal team. And then what we realized is he was starting to retire and kind of move on from doing kind of regular work with businesses. Is we're like, okay, there's a hole and a gap in our kind of strategy of like, how are we supporting our franchisees? And kind of realizing when we looked at our franchisees, we're like, okay, I think they're where we are, they need to move to like the next level. And what is that? Because we don't even know what that necessarily was.
Mhm.
So I think actually Wolf, so just I don't know if I said this at the beginning. Wolf is my dad, and then the another major player in our business is also my mother. And they were looking for coaching strategies, and they were trying to figure out what that looked like. And then they got I think they got an email that had a retreat in it for
Mhm.
AC Inc. And it happened to be in the Dominican Republic. And I think my dad was like, well, that sounds like a good vacation, and we're doing business. It's a
Right.
write-off theory. So they go to this thing, and then they discover they met you guys, and then they're like, wow, this really moving away from kind of just doing like sales training and more consulting and moving into more of a coaching world, and not just coaching operations and coaching sales, but coaching how to build your business
Yeah.
is I think the next level of how we're going to make our franchise, like help our franchisees to be more successful. And then that's kind of when we met you guys. And I think when we met, you guys started working with Brecken. I think what we realized was like, oh, okay, like we need to move away from like I think our natural intention again from that problem solving perspective was like, oh, okay, we can solve problems left and right. Like here's what we can do here, here's what we can do here. It's like we moved to a well, what do you need and what are your goals? And how do we help you get to those goals
Mhm.
as opposed to like here's what your goals are, here's what we want you to do, and here's where your business is, this is how your business can be successful. Like we moved away from the us telling and us being curious and saying like, well, what are your goals? Like, how big do you want this business to be? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself selling your business, and where do you want to sell it at? Like, we were able to actually start being open about those conversations with our franchisees. And then I think us being open about those things made them start to see, oh, these are opportunities in our businesses that we can grow. And we feel safe coming to our franchisor to talk about it too. Cause like we started having sessions about like, selling your business one day and having an open conversation about like, yeah, come to us when you want to do that because we're excited for you to grow it so you can sell it. That's what we're trying to do for you. Or when they're like, oh, we're thinking of getting a salesperson. We're like, instead of being like, here's how you do that, it was like, okay, well, what does that look like? How would you build it? Like asking those questions so that they are able to, they're doing it themselves so they feel fulfillment and like they did it, as opposed to us kind of maybe hand holding them the way we maybe used to a little bit more. Which again came from good intentions, but also a lot of assumptions and a lot of us being like, by trying to problem solve and give them things, it was really it wasn't making them feel like they were owning it, like we thought they might have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. So just checking on time, just to wind down a little bit. If we've got franchisors that are listening that are really trying to solve some problems that they're seeing, or some challenges or those areas of opportunity that they have in their brands, if you were going to give them some words of advice around this, don't assume, ask questions, be curious, all of those kinds of things, what would some of those key tips be that you could share?
I think the first thing is just always just going back to a place of like, these are, I mean, at least for us, like when I look at our franchisees, I'm like so proud of our franchise network, and I deeply care about all the individual franchisees. Like we're an emerging franchise, so we have 14 franchisee like teams with 18 territories, but I feel very much engaged with their lives. So I think the first thing is just stay curious. I think like generally like, and assuming those best intentions. Like I think when someone's coming to you with a problem or an issue, you're never going to be perfect at resolving all problems. But I think if you come from an honest place of like, I want to help you, and if you're having an issue, let's learn more about that, like, and figure out what you're at. Like, let's really dig in and figure out what the true issue is so that we can help you to kind of guide you along to like be able to make that solution. I think that's a key thing, is just staying curious. And then I think that's just it's a tree branch of empathy a little bit. And I think that's really important. I think another thing is just, I think when we assume, I think that also creates a natural negativity towards our franchisees. Like, I think when you start making assumptions about why they're doing what they're doing, there does become like a franchisor versus franchisee kind of butt up a little bit. And if you can get away from that, I think it really truly allows you to feel like more of a holistic team where the franchisor and the franchisee are a group. And I mean, we're like I said, we're not perfect. No franchise is, but I do feel like I like creating an environment where you feel like, I guess that's the other thing I think is really important, is when you assume the fact that they're coming to you with a problem is already a win. Even if it's a bad problem. Like if they're coming to you and saying, I have no leads, at least they came to you and said, I'm struggling. Because if you start assuming and throwing solutions at them or telling them they're wrong or and making those assumptions and then telling them what to do, they might not come to you with that problem next time. So I think by being curious and asking those questions, you're also then creating an environment where they feel safe and like they trust you to come to you with their issues, even if it's something that you did wrong. And then it gives you the opportunity to hold yourself accountable. So I feel like that creating that safe environment where they want to come to you with their problems is also extremely important, because the moment they start like, floating out their negative and frustrated, that then can create also further issues with like your network as an entirety. It can create a very toxic franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, trust is so important. And this is all about trust. and doing this and asking those questions and not assuming. It's really how we create more trust with our franchisees. So thank you, Tessa. This was so good. I love this conversation. It's a reminder that kind of curiosity is not just a soft skill that we have, but it's actually a business skill that we need in order to build that trust with our franchisees. So for anyone who is listening, if you want to strengthen your own franchisee support, whether that is working on creating a solid coaching structure and system and mindset, like what Tessa's been talking about, or actually getting your coaches training and skills on coaching franchisees, reach out. We are here. This is what we do. So you can reach us. You can reach me at jennifer@fieldcoachexperts.com. And until next time, thank you for joining us on the Field Coach Experts podcast.